So last class we saw how to derive XPath from our ESPN website. So today we are going to go more in detail into how we're going to derive CSS path and use CSS selectors uh, the same way. And like I said last class, we should generally use CSS over XPath simply because it is 10 times more faster than XPath, and it's a lot less brittle in comparison to XPath. So we're going to have the same test that we ran previously. It's going to redirect us to our ESPN website. Click on scores fixtures, click on the series drop down and select one of the series. Okay, so if you want to see it work, so it's pretty much the same action that uh, was carried out in the last class, but then it's just using a different selector that is custom written. So it clicked on your scores and fixtures. It clicked on all series and it just picked one of them. Okay, and you can also see uh, that it's uh, checked if these two were similar. So it's checked if this heading is changed according to what you have selected over here. Okay, so this is the action that we'll be covering today, but using CSS selectors.
What if when while running this script on the Firefox, my Firefox is crashing?
Huh?
Really? No, all of the
Is depends on your Firefox version. If it is 47, please uninstall it. Install 46. I have told that even in the document I sent. Currently, Selenium is not supporting version number 47, 2.53.
better and change it to code.
Yeah, you can.
Don't take for alternate. Oh, you will.
Okay, so I'm going to create a Maven project. Okay, call this com.espn.css selector session. Okay, so I have my main project set up. I'm just going to copy my form.xml. Please get used to using Maven. Humble request. Because once you start using it, it will make your life easy. Just save. So for the benefit of saving time, I'm going to copy the same code that we had written previously for our XPath session. So we have our object and main code that we wrote in our last class. Okay, so it's automatically gone into my default folder. And the test. Okay. So we'll just quickly run through each of the part. So this is our main code, objects, and our actual test. Okay. So in our main code, if you remember, we had written a public class for opening our Firefox driver. This opens up a session, okay, and the driver dot get URL takes URL as a parameter so that we can call it from our main test. So you can technically ask it to go to any link that you want it to go to. Okay, we have a common WebDriver instance that is over here declared. Okay, and in the main test method, okay, so what we are doing is we are finding the object which is a scores and fixtures button. Okay, so it's going to click that button over here. Okay, it's going to get the all series drop down button and store the web element within this uh, web element, that is all series button element, and then I can call it and click that particular button. Okay, and then the thread.sleep is just a simple wait over here for it to finish loading. And the last action would be for us to be able to select any of the options from the drop down. So we'll go ahead and add uh, the pass and fail test to this. Okay, so in the objects class, or rather in this case the interface, you can see that all of these objects are publicly available, and in case ever these change in the future, this is the only place that you have to change. And this today's class is one of the best examples that I can give when an object change. So from now in this class, we're going to change this XPath into CSS Selector, and I don't have to touch anything from here. Okay, so this is the sort of maintenance sort of clarity that this would give, and this is just like I said, like the first step into framework. Okay, and then you have your main test class. Okay, where I'm simply just saying, just go to this URL, just test this for me, that's it. So literally even this section goes untouched. Okay, so coming to our CSS selectors, we don't have to change anything anywhere else. So directly jumping to CSS selectors. So the scores and fixtures button. So we'll take a look at that first. Okay, scores and fixtures. Oh wait, let's go to cricket. There are many ways of having to get or create a CSS selector. I'll show you some of the different ways. The rest is you guys will have to experiment and read up and see. I'll send a link to where you can like sort of read up on more. Okay, but this will be like stepping stone into CSS selectors for you guys. So also you can in your Firepath and uh, Firebug, you have this thing called CSS Selector, but I would prefer you not using this, so I'm gonna move this to XPath so that we don't have to use it. Okay, I'll also show you how you can check your CSS selectors from Chrome browser. Okay, so we're first looking at scores and fixtures, right? So you can see that this span over here, if I hover over it, actually highlights the scores and fixtures. Okay, so for me to be able to write a CSS selector for this, not okay, we'll find out. So just like how I told you on in XPath, this that dot slash slash tag name attribute name and then value. Got my classes. Okay, in the same way for CSS selector, it's a lot more simpler than your XPath. Okay, for your CSS selector, it is tag name. Okay, and then you have attribute name. Okay, and then equal to value. This is one way. Okay, there are multiple ways that I can call this. So this is for your standard XPath, and this is for your CSS selector. Okay, so let's look at an example for this and then compare it in how we had written it to XPath. Okay, so you'll know how much more simpler it is. So now this is pointing at A, so this is must be the next one. Okay, so this little A is our scores and fixtures. Okay, so I'll say you have your tag name, which is A. Okay, and then you have your attribute name, which is name. Okay, and then equal to, okay, the value of your name. You can see that this is in CSS Selector. If I say that, and you can see it automatically gets highlighted.
No slash here.
No slash, nothing. It's as simple. You don't have that dot slash slash and that et before your attribute name. You don't have all that here. Okay, just like how you can use star for your tag name and it will check all your tag names. Instead of A, I can also have star here. Okay, and it'll still point me to that because this name attribute is unique. That is the point over here. The key thing is that this is unique. Okay, it can happen that this is unique for a certain tag. So for example, if I have A here, this name might be unique for this A tag, but there might be some other tag that is span also might have this. So if I use star and then this, it will select both of them. As long as your attribute is unique. So we can use this now, right? So let's copy this. So yeah, it points correctly. Go here. So under my scores and fixtures button, I will simply just replace that to this. Okay, this is one way of finding or creating your own CSS selector. Do you have any doubts in this? No, right? It's a lot simpler compared to XPath.
But
Yeah.
you will have to still make one change in the code, right? If you are doing like this.
By yeah, we'll get there. We'll get to the main code change. Like once we populate all of the selectors, because that change is minimal. Okay, so this is one way. Okay, and so the next action will be for us to click on the all series button, right? So let's go to the all series button and check that. So
Here we'll go through that div again, right?
what?
Here we'll go through that div, li and all.
We'll go to that for the child nodes.
Okay.
Okay, so this is your uh, HTML code for that certain button. Okay, so in this, so you can tell me now. What do you think, or rather, how do you think I can write the CSS selector now that you have seen an example? So this is what you have to use now. So tell me. Same syntax. Tag name, attribute, and then value. So tell me.
Then button and
Button.
class as
Okay, you can take class. Okay, so class equals
value.
and the value of the class. Remember, it should be unique. Fine, we'll check.
It was not unique. That's why I think.
Okay, so we have this. Let's check if it is unique. No, it's unique.
It's unique. Yeah. Use star.
So if I use star,
This won't be unique, right?
don't know. We do not know how developers would have coded the page, right?
Okay. Both the ways it will work because it's.
Yeah, as long as your attribute and the value is unique, it will work. Okay, so this is one way. Okay, but there are some couple of other ways also that you can sort of create your CSS selector paths. Okay, so if your class is unique, okay, uh, I think there are other classes that use button filter, met drop down toggle, but it's important that I show you this, show this way to you guys. Okay, so in CSS selector, when I use dot, this dot, it means I'm referring to a class. Okay, the thing about CSS selectors is if you have a unique class, you can identify an object using that class, and to call that class you use a dot. Okay, see, for example, you have this class over here. Okay, so I can call this class like this. Okay, so this dot now signifies I'm using a class name. Okay, I'll paste that. You see these gaps over here, spaces, just fill them up with dots. Okay, and if I say enter, and you can see that there are multiple with the same class name, because if you see, even this is a drop down. Okay, but one thing that you notice is the class name is actually just half. Okay, so you can see it's only until toggle and toggle, and then you have med blah 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 blah. Okay, so it will highlight anything even if there's the part of that class string that is a match. Okay, this is another way. So if your name is completely unique, you can use this way also for your CSS selector. Okay, so I don't know if I can find a unique class. So let's try this carousel wrap, because we have only one date carousel, right? This one. So let's see if it will highlight. So that's the class name. So dot, I'm using a class. Okay, sorry, it didn't copy. Okay, so carousel wrap, and if I press enter, so you can see it's selected, which means that class is unique, and I don't have to do tag name, class attribute, and then value. Okay, because that value is within code, so it's limited to that string, so it will be able to point out even if it is a single string. But in this case, this is completely unique, so I can just say go copy paste carousel wrap dot carousel wrap into my this thing if I'm using it. It's how simple. Okay, so that's another way. so we want it all series. Okay, so in our case we will just use button, yeah, wait, is this right button? No, yeah. Okay, always make sure you check your objects before you do it. Copy, come here, all series drop down button. I'm simply going to replace this. Okay, so you have your two selectors that are ready. Okay, so now we're going to see another way of your CSS, creating a CSS selector. Just like in XPath, you can see, for us to be able to select the second child node, we had to go through a path. right? Exactly the same way you can do that in CSS selectors too. Okay, so this is one such example. So you have this button. So this UL I think is, yeah, it's all the values, so all the lists over here. Okay, so for us to be able to now select or use this list, uh, so we have this now. So it connects to this button. So we don't want that button, right? So we need this div. So I will say div. Okay, and I will say class drop down wrapper hoverable. Okay, so now this will point to this. Okay, and then in XPath we use slash. In this we use this.
What is that?
The greater than less two. Okay, okay, and after that the lists are under UL, so I will say UL. Okay, so you can see it's actually highlighting a lot of lists. I think there are a lot of lists with the same name. Yeah, okay. So but we need this, and then I will say li, which stands for these lists. Okay, when I say li and now press, you can see all the lists are selected. Okay, so this is one way of you traversing through your tag names. Okay, another way, okay, so if you do not want to do, by class name, div class name attribute value, if you do not want to do that, there is another way of doing it. Okay, in CSS selector, just like how dot specifies a class, okay, your hash symbol specifies an ID. So you have ID has a unique attribute in all your HTML code, right? So hash now signifies ID. So just scroll through your HTML and see if there's any tag value that has an ID. So I can see, I think ID scoreboard page has ID, right? So I'm going to take that scoreboard page ID and I will put it here. Okay. And if I say now, if I press enter, it will highlight this line, or anywhere else scoreboard page is used as an ID. Okay, so if I minimize this, you can see that your scoreboard page, and then you have your header. Okay, so same way I will say header. Okay, so now my header is selected. Okay, so under my header now I want div. So I will say div. Okay, and under div is another div. So I will say again div. Remember, in this, like in XPath, if we have multiple divs, we don't have to do this. It will automatically figure out which div you have to go to. Okay, you just say div, or how many ever divs within child divs are there. To the last, your tag name, okay, can be attested with a class name for it to be able to figure out as well. Okay, so we'll see. Okay, so div. Okay, so now your header is selected, your div is selected, now your this div is selected. Okay, so if you see, automatically your div is selected now. So this develop, we have to get into that div. So you have UL. Okay, so if I put button, now my button will get selected. Okay, so I will say UL. Okay, so now my UL is getting selected, and then I will say LI.
So we can skip this thing also. This button was there, we skipped it, we went to UL right directly.
Yeah,
We
it'll
can skip
automatically
it, right?
skip. Yeah. Okay, so you saw this, right? The same way how instead of using the tag name, attribute, and then attribute name, you can also do this using your ID, just by using hash and the ID name, and then traverse through. Okay. Yeah.
Instead of giving the entire path, we are going from header div UL, right? Can we just give li after the scoreboard, like after the class, like in XPath we do, right?
So if there are multiple LIs within that, it will not select. If only if it is directly under that, I think it will. So we can check. So you can see it's not returning me any value.
So we have to go by.
You have to traverse, or you have to find a smarter way of doing it. There's always a smarter way of doing it, honestly. So, for example,
Which one is the best to use? That by ID, by
see,
class
always
name?
see, in the sense, I didn't get you.
Because you're teaching each one of them.
So, the reason being, you will have to know all of these to be able to create a smarter CSS. So, if I were to create this CSS selector, okay, I wouldn't actually traverse using ID, though you can, it's fine. Okay, I would actually just do UL class name and then directly thing, because yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, tell.
Or you can just give the, instead of traversing through the XPath, you can just give the element or the tag right after scoreboard page. You can just give li space li. That should detect. I'm just guessing.
Like this?
Yeah.
Like this, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. You're right. Yeah, it does.
Because
So you can, yeah, you can do this, but it's still all tied up to your ID. So if your parent class change, this will also break. So I would always say,
because in XPath we are not avoiding XPath because
yeah, the whole path breaks. I would say avoid anything that has a path.
Right.
But then I would also say don't link it to a larger class. Always link it to subclass, because subclasses may move around, but inside a larger class, there are good chance that it will break. So I would rather link the UL class drop down and then the LI instead of the scoreboard and then LI. Get it? That way. So
For the second one, we'll index it for like 2 and how we used to do it.
XPath, no. You just do div. So if even if there are multiple divs under this say header, I just say div.
Not about that one. Once we selected all the li, right?
Huh.
Just want to select.
Yeah, you will be able to. Yeah, so I'm just showing different ways in which you can use CSS selectors. This is like literally some of the few ways, honestly speaking. Exactly like what Chetan said, there are numerous ways of being able to use CSS selectors. You just have to find the best way to do it. And this is just like few examples in which you can use to select an element. So so for us, so now that we have traversed here, okay. So imagine I want to select the one of the child elements. Okay, in your XPath, we had a way of selecting just by using the number, right? So in this we have something called as nth child. Okay, so I will do this. Okay, and I will say nth child. Okay, bracket, assuming I want to select 3, okay, and if I press enter, it will select my third child. Okay, like you have a lot of these commands also. uh, the your best friend is Google to learn more about CSS selectors. Okay, so for do you guys have any doubts? No, right? So I'm just going to use this for now. But like Chetan said, this is not the best way to do it. Okay, so I have pasted this. Okay, so now we come back to our main code now that we have three CSS selectors. Okay, so in our main code, when we previously wrote, we had called each of our elements by using XPath. So we'll simply have to change all of these to be able to use CSS selectors. CSS selector. Yeah. Okay, and then save. So the only thing now that is left is for us to be able to verify in the same way. Okay, so I'm going to ask you to wait because it's going to take a while before the page refreshes. So, so we already have the button value. We will need the header value. So it's already given me a good header value actually. So it's using the class name and under that the heading. So this is fine because it is tied down to your header. So if I just do this now, it selects the whole stuff. If you copy this, okay. So over here, I'll create a new web element to extract the text, and I'll say header value element, and I'll replace with that object. Yeah, so the header value. Save. Okay. So now we'll have to simply write an if statement. So if, okay, whatever condition meets, then pass, else, just put a fail. Okay. So what do you think the condition is going to be? We've already dealt with this, you should know. Chetan don't get to answer. Huh. True and false, but I want to know the condition under what circumstances will it be true? But how do you say it matches in Java? We have written this code before. You think about the condition. Okay, so how do you get the text element or whatever values there from that element? So see, analyze. So when you are testing manually, they say that an automation engineer is only as good as they are in manual testing. So when you are testing it manually, okay, you have a test case that says when you change this value, check if this changes. So you are checking if this changes and this changes. Okay, so in your code you have two objects, one for this and one for this. Okay, so you should ask your code to get this text and then get this text and then simply compare. That's what you are visually doing as well, right? You are seeing in your eyes to check if these two are equal. So the tag there is equal. Okay. How do you how do you get the value in Selenium? Yeah. So we already have this element created for the drop down button. So I will do this dot get text. Okay. So now this will get the text for me. Okay. So now we have to check if it is equal. Equal to, right? Equals. Okay. Yeah, and then we put header value element. Okay. Dot get text. As simple. It is just checking that this text within this element equals text within this element like that, just exactly like you equals you have a lot of other things like contains, content equals and stuff. Okay, we'll deal with that a lot later. Okay, so just let's save and then run and see if it'll pass or fail or what. So redirect. Yeah, scores and fixtures. Now it is sleeping because it has an 8-second wait. So selected. Yeah, now it will match. If you come back and see, you can see that it is passed. Okay, so tomorrow imagine your test case says instead of third child, check fourth child. You simply have to change this over here. Okay, because it's all dynamically checking if it is changing and stuff. You're not hard coding anything. Okay, so honestly speaking, this is the way that we selected objects using CSS Selector is maybe like 45% of the different ways that you can do it. There is still a lot more different ways that you can create a CSS Selector smartly. Even honestly speaking, when I'm like super aware of it. So you will have to read up, you will have to go through, yeah, and explore and learn on your own. But this is really simple ways of creating simple CSS selectors in different ways. Okay, do you guys have any doubts? It's easy, you just have to go type CSS selector, Selenium, you'll get a lot of tutorials on how to do it. So why we are customizing instead of using the Firefox? Because this Firefox and Firebug all give you brittle ones. Okay. That's right. Brittle ones, and also a lot of times when they give you dot class name, there are actually a lot of classes that are listed of the same type. To find the correct. Yeah, I would say if you are to use CSS selectors, my opinion would be for you to be using Chrome. It somehow gives a better CSS selector than that. So if I want to say check CSS selector using Chrome, I simply just right click and I say inspect. So you can see this over here, this li sub active a spanling text. That's actually the path or say of the CSS selector. So li is your tag name for the list, dot class name, and you have your arrow, that space signifies arrow in this, and then span dot link text. So you can take help of this to create your yes is this thing. So actually let's check if that's even true. So it's li. The sad part is you can't copy that, you'll have to type sub sub dot active, and then a, and then span link text. So yeah, it's right. So you can see that the CSS selector, like it actually gave us, is literally just within this section. So even if this section is like literally moved to something else, it's not going to break. You don't even need the span, I think. I don't know. Yeah, you don't even need the span. So pretty straightforward. Fine. Fine. I'm stopping the record.